Official. Official.
So, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the CaliKidOfficial podcast. This is episode number 12. So, a lot has happened over the past week, so let's get right into it. So, this past week we had the battle with T-Pain versus Little John. Each side put on a performance of 20 of their best records. And what was pretty interesting about this battle in particular was the way that they was playing off of each other. And then there was some funny moments. There was cracking jokes and stuff, and a bit of historical facts was presented as well. Like the song "Some Cut" was produced by Little John, and you know that squeak that you hear this whole time. I'm pretty sure many people thought it was a bed squeaking, but as the story was told, the sound pretty much came from him being in a chair going back and forth like this, and one of his mans told him, "You hear that?" And he was like, "Nah." And so they put a mic up to it, and then they recorded that, and then the rest was history. So let's get into the battle. So round one, T-Pain started off, so it was Good Life versus Get Low. I gave that one to T-Pain. Round two was Low versus Yeah. I gave that to Little John. Round three we had Up Down versus Salt Shaker. I gave that to Little John. Round four was Booty Work versus No Problem. That round I pretty much had as a tie, though some people might have given it to one or the other side. Then we had I'm So Hood versus Throw It Up. I gave that one to T-Pain. Round six was Get Money versus Damn. I had it as a tie. Both of those songs were smashes, so that's pretty much why I gave that one a tie right there. Then round seven we had Go Hard versus Tour. I gave that to T-Pain. We had Hey Baby versus The Anthem. I had that as a tie. The Anthem was All I Do Is Win Win Win. Both of those songs were big. Then we had 5 O'Clock versus I Don't Give a Fuck. I gave that to T-Pain. Then we had The Boss versus Let's Go. I gave that to T-Pain. Then we had round 11, I'm Sprung versus Freak League. I gave that to Little John. Then we had Kiss Kiss versus Goodies. Now I had that as a tie, but one thing I can say though is when Goodies comes on, like that first initial part of the song, it hits hard. So I can see people giving that one to John. But both of those records were smashes. Then we had Can't Believe It versus Some Cut. Both of those songs was dope, so I gave that as a tie. Then round 14 we had Two Step versus Lean Back. I gave that to T-Pain. Lean Back was pretty much Lil Jon's remix of the song. Then we had I'm a Flirt versus Gasolina. Now both of those songs are smashes, but back when I was in junior high, Gasolina, they used to play the mess out of that song, so I gave that one to Lil Jon. Then we had Blame It versus Shots. I gave that to Blame It, so that one went to T-Pain. Then we had Bartender versus Blow the Whistle. Now, even though both songs are smashes, Blow the Whistle, that one is too much to contend with, so I gave that to Little John. I go on and on, can't understand how I last so long. Then we had I'm in Love with a Stripper versus Lovers and Friends. I gave that a tie because those two are dope ass songs. Then we had Buy You a Drink versus Snap Your Fingers. I gave that one to T-Pain. Then the last round was All I Do Is Win. So that Anthem was a different record. My bad for saying that those were one and the same. But we had All I Do Is Win versus Turn Down for What, and I gave that to Little John. So after tallying up the score, I had it 8-6 to T-Pain with 6 ties. So those 6 ties can pretty much sway the ultimate, the score in the ultimate battle. Or should I say the score of the overall battle? Because those 6 ties 3 could have went to one side, 3 could have went to another side, or 6 or 4 or 5 or however. So, but overall, the it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. I didn't realize um, some of these records they had a hand in, and then after the battle, they started playing unreleased music and bonus records. So at the end of the battle, Lil Jon was like, I'm hoping you're gonna play that song I think he gonna play. And then he was like, Shoddy, and then T-Pain was like, ooh, that's a good one. But no. But he ended up playing it. And then Lil Jon played Tell Me When to Go. T-Pain played Chopped and Screwed. And then we get an unreleased fuck record, as they coined it, with Usher, Ludacris, and Lil Jon. And from what we was told is he's been sitting on his record for 2 years, and that shit is heat. I don't understand why you've been sitting on a record like that. That shit is heat. If you wasn't at the live, you missed out. But that record was heat. And then you have people in the comments, specifically some of the other artists was like, Usher, what the hell, man? You need to put that out tomorrow. and then T-Pain played a record, which was dope too. And then one of the people in the comments was like, because T-Pain said he been trying to put it out, but he hasn't had the clearance, so he wants to put out this album. But with this record in particular, the dude that I guess has like has a part in writing or producing the beat is what's holding it back. So one of the people in the chat was like, what's his Instagrams, or what's his Twitter or something, so I can block him. Because this is the type of things that go on in the music industry. You know, we as fans, you wonder why it be taking so long for projects and stuff to come out. Is because behind the scenes, the paperwork don't be all together. You be having artists or producers holding up songs because they haven't cleared them, and then it'd be hard for people to get in touch with them for whatever reason. They be ghosting people or whatever. But he played that record. Lil Jon, I think his thing had got like disconnected or something, but T-Pain stayed on for a little bit longer, and he played another song with him and Chris Brown. It was okay. It's called Wake Up Dead. And then Lil Jon played another song, Presidential. So we got a couple of unreleased records, which was pretty cool. But moving on from that, we also had WrestleMania 36, and this year's WrestleMania was probably the most unique in that, you know, due to what's going on, there's no fans. So it was a pretty interesting WrestleMania, and I would say is one of the better ones that I've seen in some time, which is pretty interesting, right? So one of the matches I wanted to touch upon first was the triple threat ladder match for the tag team belts. Instead of it being like 6 people, it was just one member from each tag team in the ring. So we had John Morrison, who's the SmackDown tag team champions, with the Miz versus Kofi Kingston and Jimmy Uso of the Uso brothers. So the match started off pretty cool. It was a couple of interesting spots in there. One in particular, we saw Kofi Kingston. He jumped from the turnbuckle to the middle of the ring with John Morrison on the ladder. So basically, he jumped to John Morrison on the ladder and then did a Hurricane Rana off the ladder with Morrison, which was pretty cool. And it also speaks to his athletic ability. So that was one of the better spots. And then there was this one spot where Kofi had set up Uso on a ladder outside, basically wedged the ladder between the ring and the barricade. And Morrison, before Kofi can get to the move he was going to do, he tight-roped across the rope. And then he basically did like a moonsault lariat move off the top rope with Kofi. So that was a pretty cool move. And then John, he hit a corkscrew splash on Kofi on the ladder that was wedged beneath the turnbuckle. And then at one point, Uso was walking across the barricade, and then Kofi threw a ladder at him, and he was like, I know you tough, so I gotta take you out. I think Jimmy got messed up the most in the match because he was on the ladder, and then John Morrison pushed the ladder, so he flew off the ladder over the rope. So that was at least a 10-foot drop. So he got hit particularly hard in this match. And then towards the end of the match, all three was fighting for the belts. Kofi and Jimmy was on this side of the ladder, and then John was on this side. They all had hold of the little holder thing that has the belts, and then they had smacked John Morrison with it, and it broke, and the belts dropped with John Morrison. And as he was falling, he hit the ladder beneath him, and then fell on the floor and ultimately won the match. So that was pretty interesting. And then, like, when the match was over, he was like, Jimmy was like, man, I had that. But yeah, moving on to the next match, we had Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins, or as he likes to be called now, the Monday Night Messiah. So the match starts off back and forth. Seth eventually wins, or should I say gets disqualified by hitting KO with the timer's bell. KO recovers a bit. He grabs the mic and tells him, this isn't how it's going to end. Get back here. And so basically it becomes a no disqualification match. Then they start beating the hell out of each other. KO is getting whacked with the steel chairs. That mess is crazy. Cause like without the fan noise, you can hear everything. That mess was brutal. Like he had got hit in the back, and then he put his hands up to try to block it, and he got smacked again. And then Seth, he got hit with the timekeeper's bell, and then KO set him up on the announcer's table, and then he went up and climbed on top of the WrestleMania sign, and basically did he basically jumped from the sign and landed on Seth. And then Seth was hurt bad because he was wheezing a lot. Like that's one of the things I noticed in the matches, like when the people were getting hit like particularly hard, it was wheezing a lot. And so KO basically ends the match with the stunner and picks up the victory. So that was funny. But yeah, Seth, he was pleading for mercy. Which brings us to the AJ Styles versus Undertaker boneyard match. Now this is probably the best match and storyline WWE has put out in some time. So the match itself didn't take place in the Performance Center. It was filmed on an off-site area. So it starts off with a hearse pulling into the place where the match is going to take place, and it's playing the Undertaker's Dead Man music. But two druids get out of the car. They open up the back part of the hearse. In there is a casket. They open the casket, and who's in the casket? AJ Styles. Then we get AJ Styles talk a little trash, talk about this place ain't so scary. And then he was like, "Where you at, Undertaker?" And then you hear the biker, you hear the noise from the bike, and he was like, "Oh, he's on his way." So Taker makes his way on his chopper. He reprises his role as the American Badass, which we've been as fans have been waiting for that to come back for a while. And he's riding to like some Metallica, so he enters. They start talking shit to each other. That was probably like the best part, like the shit talking. Then he was like, "Oh, so I'm an old man, huh? This what you wanted, huh, boy? You going what you had to say about my wife?" And so like the match starts off. AJ had like this little pipe, but Undertaker manages to get it away from him, and then he takes it and he goes to hit AJ with it. But instead of hitting him, his arm goes through the glass of the hearse And so he looks at his elbow and he was like, "Son of a bitch, you made me bleed." And there was like this big welt. I don't know if like something was broken, but it looked kind of crazy. But the match was dope. The match was dope, man. Like they was talking so much trash, and then at one point both of them got kicked into a dug grave. The OC was there, and so they basically lure Undertaker into this open part of the overall yard, and then from behind like this these cellar doors, a bunch like 6 druids came out to confront the Undertaker, but he completely dispatched them. Then AJ Styles was running, and he climbed on top of like the roof of the barn. Uh, one of the members of the OC got choke slammed. Who was it? Like got choke slammed off of the off of the roof. I think it was yeah, it was Gallows. Gallows he got choke slammed, and then the other member of the OC got tombstone, and then AJ tried to run, and then that's when Undertaker went like this, and then like flames went up behind AJ, and then he choke slammed AJ off of the barn onto this wooden undercarriage, which pretty much was the end for AJ. And then when Undertaker got down there, AJ started pleading for mercy, talking about, "Please don't bury me, don't bury me." And then Undertaker was like, "Bury you? Nah, you fought hard. I ain't gonna bury you. You fought hard. You know, I have to give it to you. You're a lot tougher than I thought you would be." And then Undertaker kind of walks away, and then he gives his whole facial expression changes, and then he turns around and kicks AJ into the pit. But before that, let me go back a bit, because AJ had him in the undug grave, and then that's when Undertaker appeared behind him. So that was pretty interesting. But ultimately, Undertaker won the match. He laid the dirt on top of him, and then at the end, you see a hand sticking out, which it wasn't really AJ's hand because of the way that it was positioned. It was more than likely a prosthetic. But the match, that was probably the best match on the overall card. But that was crazy. That was day one though of WrestleMania. And you know, of course, Braun Strowman won the belt off of Goldberg. That match was pretty lackluster, so I ain't gonna really get too much into that. But the next day we had Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. This was a dope ass match. So Rhea, she started getting the better of Charlotte in the early parts of the match, but then Charlotte, she just started dominating. She started targeting Rhea's leg, and that pretty much spelled the end of her. But the match was dope. They was shit talking too. And then Charlotte ultimately ends the match with the inverted figure eight, and Rhea taps out, and Charlotte becomes the NXT champion. And so going forward, she's going to basically be on NXT, which is interesting, you know, because she's won all the belts. So I guess it made sense for her to go back to the place where it all started. So that was that match. Then we had the Edge versus Orton last minute standing match. This was dope too. The match lasted for like, I think close to 30 minutes. They fought in the Performance Center. They ended up in backstage areas. There was this one part where Orton had was it Orton or was it Edge? I think Orton had put Edge in like these straps and like kind of like choked him. And then you had a bunch of people on the internet talking about, oh, it reminded them of Benoit's death. But watching the match, that wasn't even something that even crossed my mind. So that's just people being overly sensitive or whatever. But Overall, the match was pretty cool. It ended it with with Edge hitting Randy with the concerto, which is basically when you have the opponent's head resting on another chair, and then you take another chair and whack them while their head is on the chair beneath them, and then he pins them. And so that pretty much ended that match. Then we had Bayley versus Sasha Banks, Tamina, Lacey Evans, and Naomi for the SmackDown Women's title. So pretty much the match starts. They pretty much jump Tamina because she's the biggest threat. They get her out of there. Bayley and Sasha is working together throughout the match. So they started targeting, all the other people. Naomi gets taken out. And then Lacey, she hits Sasha with the women's right. But before that, Bayley had pushed Sasha out the way so she didn't get hit. But then that's when Lacey came back and hit her with the move. And then Lacey, she was close to winning the belt. But then Sasha had came back into the match even though she was eliminated and hit her with the first part of her move, the bank statement. And then Bayley got up and hit her with the DDT, her new move, the DDT, where she grabs her by the head like this and then, hit her with like a frontal DDT. So Bayley retains her belt, but it's looking like it's going to be a setup to where Sasha ultimately challenges for the belt sometime down the line. So that was that. Then we get the Bray Wyatt versus John Cena Firefly Funhouse match. Now this was pretty interesting too, and hats off to Bray Wyatt because his creative mind is why his character is sticking out. So he pretty much had a hand in constructing this. So the way it started was John Cena came into the Performance Center. He entered it with his music, and then it cut to him being transported to some alternate universe, which is the Firefly place. And basically the entire concept is Bray Wyatt is taking John Cena from the beginning of his career all the way to now. And it was kind of crazy because it's like, and then like the different aspects of each of those times, Bray Wyatt is playing the person that was significant in that time. So instead of Kurt Angle calling out John Cena for his first match, is Bray Wyatt, and so on and so on. So like the first match was, of course, as I said, of Bray Wyatt calling him out. John Cena tries to hit him, but like Bray Wyatt disappears because they're in his universe, so they playing by his rules. And then the next segment is Saturday Night Main Event, and then they're pretty much playing the roles of like 70s and 80s characters. And then John Cena comes out pumping iron, and then they get transported into the ring, and like he can't move his arms, I guess, because he had pumped too much iron, which is weird. And then the next match was John Cena's Doctor of Thugonomics gimmick, and he's basically talking crap about Bray Wyatt. And he also brought back the SmackDown fist, was cool. And then Cena basically talks about Bray Wyatt's shortcomings, and then that's when Bray Wyatt's character transforms and transitions. So it goes from the Husky Harris to the Wyatt family gimmick he had. They redo the match that they had 6 years ago at I think that was Backlash. They redo that match, and then for some reason Bray plays the role of Eric Bischoff, which is weird. And then he announces the arrival of the NWO, but instead of it being Hollywood Hogan, it's John Cena. And he comes out doing the Hollywood Hogan gimmick, which was weird. And then they also snuck in Vince McMahon's "This is good shit" saying that went viral, so that was pretty interesting. And then John Cena pretty much loses his cool, and then like as he tries to punch Bray Wyatt, he switched to like some puppet, and then standing behind John Cena is the Fiend, who then puts him in his move. the mandible claw, and basically beat John Cena. So that was probably the most bizarre match I've seen in some time. But overall, the best match, of course, was the boneyard match. That was the best match. And then we end with Lesnar versus McIntyre. So it wasn't a long match. The match was about 5 minutes. It starts off with Drew hitting the Claymore early on, but Brock Lesnar kicks out, and then Brock Lesnar goes into, Suplex City. Then he hits him with a F5. Drew kicks out at 1. Then he hits him with another one. Drew kicks out at 2. And then he hit him with 2 more F5s after that, and Drew kept kicking out. And then that's when Drew McIntyre hit Lesnar with, I think, like 3 or 4 Claymores and ultimately won the match. So both Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman are the new champions on the SmackDown and Raw brand. So, but going forward, I believe once all this, once everything returns back to normal, we're going to see a program with Strowman versus Reigns. And who knows who McIntyre is going to face. That would be pretty interesting. But it's the overall WrestleMania was dope, but it's also kind of messed up because like the wrestlers don't get their moment to celebrate winning with the fans and with the big in a big arena. I know KO said that he was going to jump off of the boat at the Tampa Bay Stadium, which instead of just jumping off the WrestleMania sign. So, and then you also have to take into account the special entrances that you see at WrestleMania. So that would have been interesting. But you got next year, which is going to be in LA. So overall, this was a pretty interesting WrestleMania, I would have to say. And then we had quarantine radio, club quarantine, which is what I like to call it, with Tory Lanez. It was pretty interesting. If you didn't get to see it, once again you missed out. So it got pretty wild. You had this one chick from France. She got crazy in the shower. I mean, they brought out the milk, was drenching the milk on the ass and all types of stuff. And then you had this one chick. She had the world's largest gummy worm, and she did what she did, and that got it banned for a while. And then the Shade Room reached out to the CEO of Instagram, and he basically said that he's a fan of it, but can't have nudity and all that type of stuff. So at first, Tory's page was banned for like a week, so that's why he had to make another one, and then that one got banned. But ultimately, they lifted the ban, and then it got brought back. And so, what's it? Today's Friday, so on Thursday, Thursday's episode was classic. We had Alexis Texas was on there, shaking them cheeks. Natalie Nunn, she came on there. She was doing the most. Johnny Blaze, there was one part where she was making it clap and she was playing the damn piano. That shit was crazy. Who else was on there? Wiz, he's like a regular on there. We have Viking Barbie. We had the Double Dose Twins, Stephanie Silveria, and Araiza Barbosa. This Brazilian chick. She had it going on. But yeah. You guys are gonna see a couple of little images or whatever from Club Quarantine and Quarantine Radio, but you gotta give it to Tory. He sure does know how to market himself, and this was also a way for him to showcase new music from his project, the new Toronto 3, which came out midnight on Friday. So that was pretty dope. I got a chance to actually listen to it, and it was pretty cool. My personal favorites on there was Pricey and Spicy and Who Needs Love. There's also a song on there called Letter to the City 2, which I thought was pretty dope. It was very introspective. He was talking about relationships and label problems and losing people close to him. And on a letter to the city, he says, "I'm going fully independent. Any label deal under 100 mil is just offensive." So I know he was very happy that he was out of this deal, which is what he kept saying, on the on quarantine radio. Which when you get to a certain level, I mean, you don't really have to be signed to a label. I mean, it's less work, but from what he was saying, he was basically doing everything. I mean, particularly the marketing, because nowadays labels, they don't do anything. They just go and grab an artist that's hot, get as much as they can out of them, and then once that's over, they move on to the next person. There's no artist development. Marketing isn't really like how it is. The artist is pretty much doing all the marketing, so I don't blame him for wanting to stay independent. And then when you're independent, you get more money back as well. So that's why I'm independent as well too. Even if I was in a position to, be signed to a label or something, I would rather stay independent because you get all that money back. The only thing that would make sense for a person if it was like a distribution deal, but even with that, you can do that all on your own. But alright guys, so I don't know what happened. So pretty much after this scene that cuts off, I was pretty much talking about my album Euphoria, which is out on all platforms, so you guys can check that out. There'll be a link to that in the description, so make sure you guys support that. I got music videos out for that as well as merch, so make sure you guys support that. But I want to make sure all you guys, make sure you take care of yourself. And till the next podcast, peace.
CaliKidOfficial.